you can listen to it as a podcast. You don't actually have to look at our faces. So hello guys, welcome to Sunday Sit Down with Sonia. This is Sonia, and this is who are you?
I'm Ebube, guys.
So I actually met Ebube on Clubhouse, and one day we were just randomly, I think we were by ourselves for the most part.
Yeah.
There are other people
we
there
started
in and
a
out.
room, like, because I think you said you were kind of bored or something, and somehow I jumped into the room and we started talking.
Yeah, so we started talking and we decided to have this, some form of the same conversation for Sunday Sit Down with Sonia. So from the title, you guys will probably be thinking that when we're saying avoid C finish, we are telling you how to avoid people from seeing you finish. But actually, we are trying to tell you how to avoid seeing people finish. So if everyone is intentional about not seeing people finish, I think this world would be a better place. What do you think?
Sorry, what is just the phrasing of that thing is so funny because, like, if you don't understand what see finish is, and like the way we're using it, like, not to see people finish, like, because you understand what it means, it makes sense. But imagine that you weren't Nigerian, or like you've never heard that expression. You're like, what is see finish?
Yeah, so for my non-Nigerian people, if they can explain what see finish means.
Well, basically, so see finish is basically to become so used to something because of the amount of access you have to it, whether it's a person or a thing, so much so that you basically take it for granted. So like whether like, you just got a new phone, a phone that you probably saved up for, and then after a few weeks or a few months, you start treating it like it's just a phone. It falls down, you're like, hey, not the way you used to treat it in the first week or so. Same thing with people, just, becoming so used to something or someone that you basically take them for granted.
Exactly. And coming and saying that now, what do you think the purpose of relationships are? Like getting to know people is like, what do you think the purpose, like not just romantic, like every kind of relationship in your life? What do you think the purpose is? Is it not to want to know someone in their totality? Like, what's the purpose? What do you think?
Yeah, definitely. Like in getting to know people, like one of the main purposes to really get to know more of who they are, like, their core, what makes them tick, why they are the way they are, and inadvertently in so doing, you will become more used to the person, right? You will become more used to the idea of the person. And it's so funny because I like doing this before and after thing where I did it recently with someone. I was thinking about like when I first met her, right? And how I felt about her, how I regarded her, how the image I had in my head of her, right? And now I know I don't disrespect this person now, or I don't do see finish for them. But I was thinking like, the way like I thought and felt about her then is not the same way now. And it's not necessarily a bad thing. Because obviously, like after you meet someone, it's like being in a house, or like, for instance, where I stay, a lot of times when people are like, oh, I didn't know someone lives here, because it doesn't look very, homely, it doesn't look like the typical apartments. So, but if you get in, your perspective of the place changes. You don't expect that the same way I looked at you, the first room I ever saw you in is going to be the same way I'm looking at you now. I'm thinking of you, right? You're not the Sonia that I was in that room with the first day. You're not the Sonia that I didn't know anything about, that I just saw a profile picture and I saw, a little bit about her. Now I know more about you. So now, obviously, I'm talking to you in a more comfortable and informal way than I would have before. So it's not necessarily a bad thing. So the purpose of, getting to know people is to know more of who they are, to connect to them, their core, and to really be able to be open to one another. That's I think that's it for the most
Yeah.
part.
And that's and saying that, we come back to the C finish or stroke over familiarity thing, because people do say like
Yeah.
over familiarity breeds contempt somewhat. People say so, and I just feel like, while this is true, because we shouldn't, I mean, it's true because human beings are just like that. I don't understand why we can't be more intentional about appreciating every little thing. Like the fact that someone lets you into their world and let you
Yeah.
know this much about them is something you should be appreciative of. But instead, um, we tend to, like you said, we take it for granted and feel like, okay, yes, this
Mm-hmm.
person's here. I know this person is in my corner. It doesn't matter. Like, we need to be, because I'm sure everybody would want that, right? Everybody would
Yo,
want
yeah.
someone to appreciate, to show appreciation, like just be appreciative of them being in their lives. So why not do it for the next person? Like, people are always waiting for one person to do it first, or something, but we I mean,
Yeah.
if you're doing it, if you start doing it and someone is not reciprocating that energy even after communicating that it's something that is important, then you're in your right to like exit that situation or that relationship, or not to invest as much in that relationship. But I feel like if people have become friends, or we're even family members, it happens even with family, where people start having like expectations and just
Yeah.
feel they're deserving of all that you are. And
Uh-huh.
they tend
Yeah.
not to show appreciation, that you're even, like, they feel like this is you. So they're used to it, and it's like they feel it's nothing, like it's nothing special you're doing right anymore. They don't know
Yeah.
that every single thing in life is actually an effort, because I can decide to regress. I can decide not to be the sweet person, I can decide,
Mm-hmm.
everything is a decision. So the fact that I'm always deciding to put my best, or give you my 100 as much as I can,
Yeah.
is something you should be appreciative of. And if we see someone doing that for us, we should be appreciative of that, because like you said, we just get used to the person. No, this person is always here cooking for me, so it's not a big deal. Once in a while, we should be
Mm-hmm.
like, thank you for always cooking for me. Like, we have to remind ourselves that, that this person doesn't have to do this thing. Even if it's something they like to do, they don't have to do it for you or with you. So show that appreciation, right? So I don't know. Like, what do you think?
No, for real. You know, when you said that, because I haven't heard that saying in a while, but it's something we're so used to. Over familiarity breeds contempt.
Mhm.
And when you said it, my default mode was to start, taking it apart, thinking about the validity of the statement, to what extent is it true, and everything. Because first off, like I love playing with like sayings like that. Say, oh, is this true? Like, and to what extent? And so like I just kind of rephrased it in my head to two things. It could either be over familiarity without intentionality breeds
Mhm.
contempt, or over familiarity could breed contempt.
If you allow it to, yes.
Yeah,
If you,
because
the
over
person,
familiarity in and of itself is not, but we say over. I think the fact that we're over connotes negative,
yeah, yeah,
because familiarity is good,
good,
but
yeah.
over familiarity, I think, is what's the origin of that,
But what is over
saying.
familiarity? Like,
That's the thing. That's
can you
really the
be
question. Like,
over
what is
familiar
it?
with
Like,
someone? Like, let's say it's someone you're married to now, your family, you're not supposed to
yeah.
be familiar with to that person in all ways possible. Are you not
To
supposed to be?
to
Is
be
that not the
honest,
point?
right? I get what you're saying for real. To be honest, I think basically over familiarity is contempt, not that it breeds contempt.
Mhm.
Like there's a difference between in-depth and very rich familiarity.
Mhm.
But the phrasing over
Mhm.
familiarity, I think it was meant to connote something negative, that you're already reacting to the person in a way that you should not.
Mhm.
So I don't think that familiarity to whatever depth that we take it to is bad, but is now the filter, the lens in which you use to treat the other person. That's what makes it good or bad.
Bad, yeah.
But to your question about like what I think, basically you were talking about, taking a moment to appreciate people, right? There's this philosophy saying, I forget who said it. One of the things that I really appreciate is self-awareness. And when we can appreciate the fact that by default we have this inclination to kind of take people for granted, even if we're not doing it, it's not from a bad place. By default, for some reason, we can't explain it, but our humanity, that's how it's basically wired, right? After you have access to this, after a while, it's like, meh,
You
right?
get
So
comfortable.
knowing this now should now make you more intentional. It should make you, over time, it should make you time and time again to evaluate things, right? Like, this way I'm talking to this person, I know that we're pals now and everything, but does this show regard? Does this show respect? I know that we are buds, like there's no doors, there's no fence between us, but still, am I treating this person with the regard that I'm supposed to?
Yes.
Like, now and again, these are the questions we should be asking ourselves. Even when people don't complain, they don't need to complain for us to ask ourselves, am I crossing boundaries? Am I really helping this person to feel, like they're the best version of themselves? Those are the questions we should ask ourselves. Those are the kind of things that I think would help us, keep us in check and not to become over familiar.
Yeah.
In a sense, yeah.
And navigate our relationships in a better way. Because I had this boss, well, actually it was my boss's brother, but he was also my boss kind of, because he was also like a director in the company. And I don't know, he just took to me, we basically took to each other, we became good friends. I became good friends with him and his family, his wife and his kids. He welcomed me into his home. I just became really close to them. And he's older than me, like not by a little even, at least 10 years older than me. So I'm just like, not even more than, what am I saying? He's even more than, like much more than, like, so, but he, the fact that he saw me as someone that he could be friends with, right? And joke around with and play with. I was so appreciative of that. And I kept reminding myself not to cross boundaries and take it for granted. The fact that this person feels I'm sensible enough to be this chill and yuppie and, joking with me, it doesn't mean I should come and disrespect him and say it's joke or play, like use play and use the fact that we're familiar and we're friends to disrespect him. Like, I always have to keep myself in check to not cross that line. Then I even got to find out about him that people tend to take him for granted a lot because he looks much younger than his age and everything. So they just see him and just place him to one side. So I was even more careful knowing that fact. But I think the reason why I was even very aware of that is because I've been someone that I feel people have tend to take me for granted a lot too, because I just come off as easygoing and I like to try and push things aside that I feel like don't have to be a big deal. And so people tend to take it. So knowing that, it made me aware to make sure I don't do it with other people. But moving on, why do you think people tend to not appreciate things as much for things that they didn't work hard for as much as things that they did work hard for? People are always talking about how they want ease in their life. They don't want to have to suffer to get something. They don't want to have to always work too hard. Like, they want to be able to work smart and get something and just have things come with ease, like grace. But when they come, people tend to take it for granted and they don't appreciate it as much because it's like, I didn't have to put in work to come. Like, even sometimes me, free money. If I just get money that I didn't work for, I tend to spend it anyhow because it's like, okay, I didn't really work for this money. But I can also make good use of that money. I can decide to invest it or save it or use it for something tangible. But no, I can just spend it on rubbish because I didn't work hard for it. So why do you think we do that?
I think it's perceived value. That's what I think it is. Perceived value. And what that basically means is the value we bequeath to something is usually dependent on how thing came about, which is in a very large sense an erroneous way of thinking, because something has value regardless of how it came. Like, it has intrinsic value. So for instance, 1 million naira, whether I gave it to you as a gift or whether you worked your butt off for it, right?
Has value,
It's
and you
still
want it.
1 million naira. It's still what it is. Do you understand? You can still do whatever you wanted to do with it. But because of, let's say, Omo, I just saw you and you know that I have money to spare, and I'm like, let me just sign this check. That is yours, right? I mean, whatever it is you want to do with it. You feel, it's just there. Like, it's just money you didn't work for. But like I said, there are many things that it's our default setting. It's normal, mean it's okay, or it doesn't mean it's what we should subscribe to. Just because this is our normal reaction, doesn't mean this is the one we should now give ourselves to. Doesn't mean this is the ideal way of going about things. But exactly. Really, just answer your question is
perceived value. So we need to change
value mindset. Yeah, like especially with like romantic relationships, when people say like, but if like for the girl and guys and everything, and then they feel, if you don't give the guy like a tough time, he will think you're cheap. Like, what does that mean? I'm not saying that I don't understand what they are saying because of societal construct, but that doesn't make sense, because yes, guys actually think like that, but you should now ask yourself why. And not just romantic relationships in general, even platonic relationships and stuff. When people feel they got this easy, they're like, maybe this wasn't as valuable as I thought. That's why I said perceived value, and it's a very like erroneous way of thinking. Yeah. So
and now that you mentioned that, using the romantic example, I've thought about it in other examples too, and I feel like there's a deeper thing to it, because you see, like, a lot of the time men will say a woman is cheap or easy because they didn't have to work hard to get her. That is really deep to me, because it's like, or she now is maybe dirty. She's not as clean as she was. And that's deep to me, because it's like something that you have touched, because you have touched it. Now feel it has lost its value. Because you now have access to it, it has lost its value. What does that say about
you? What does that say about you? Right?
Right? Like, it's not even just about you. What does that say about you? If you never had access to this thing, it would have been super valuable. But because you now have access, you've had access to this thing, and so easily for that, what does that say about you? Another thing is, you do not even believe you are worthy of the ease of getting things with ease. You don't believe you're worthy of it. Like, you can't fathom a situation where this thing that a lot of people work hard for, I can just get it like that. Or this thing I've seen as such a good thing can just drop in my laps. Like, a lot of people don't even value themselves that much to see that something valuable can just come to them with ease. They feel they always have to work hard before something valuable can come to them. But the fact that it came to them so easily is like, that means it must not be valuable. What does that say about how you see yourself? Like, I just feel like it's deeper than sometimes how we look at it at the surface. Like, we're just looking at it as, our perception. But why is our perception like that? It has something to do with the way you see yourself. The fact that you don't even feel you're deserving of this valuable thing to come to you with ease. Or that the fact that this thing, like, you don't even believe someone can just like you without you having to knock your head and do so much. Like, it's really something.
Like earlier I talked about how it's normal for our perception or the way we relate to things. It's normal for it to change with time, with familiarity, right? And so that's what I meant when I said, and I think we're on the same page with this. That's what we're talking about. That familiarity isn't a bad thing, right? It's not how you go about it. Because I mean, I have my computer and my phone right in front of me, and as you were talking, I just, I remembered when I remember that, oh, this computer, like it just came in a box, everything. It was like, oh, so precious. But I would tell you that it is of much more value to me now than it was in the beginning.
Yeah.
Because of the history, because of the things that we
You've
have been through, and because of what it's giving me, right? Because of what I know that it can do now. Initially, I didn't know that I could have achieved all of that with this, right? Mm-hmm. The same thing with my car, come to think of it. Now, I'm not even talking about people. I just decided to use things, first of all. Mm-hmm. Even things that so easily depreciate, right? Like this, my phone now is not worth, like if I wanted to sell it now, I won't be able to sell it the same amount I bought it, the price at which I got it. Because so many memories, the history we have together. And it's the same with people. If we can think about it, like, yes, I'm no longer like, oh, it's you, because obviously I know you now. That's not going to be a rational reaction. But because of the layers of you that I have come to know, because of the different parts of you, because of the history, because of all the things we've been through, because of your mind and the different departments and intricacies of it that I've come to explore and interact with, I value you a lot more. And it still boils down to self-awareness. I'm sorry to say, but that's what it is. If you're not self-aware, these are things that will just keep going over your head. And like the saying goes, you would only know like what you have when you've lost it, which is foolish. Like
why do we wait till that happens?
Right. And that's what happens when we're too familiar or unhealthily familiar with people and the things in our lives. It really take a step back and ask yourself, what does this mean to me? And am I treating it with the regard and the respect like that it should have, right?
Yeah.
Basically, that's the mindset and the question we should ask ourselves now and again. So
it's typical that there needs to be like a mind shift, and we just need to be more self-aware and intentional about what we're like, our relationships with people. Now, there's this thing that people always say about guarding your heart, and in the Bible, what's that verse again?
Guard your heart with all diligence, for it determines the course of your life, or for out of it proceeds the issues of life. That's the King James.
One of them. Yeah. So a lot of people feel like, and they don't usually even say it in context. They don't usually like interpret it in context, right? They just hear that guard your heart thing, and they feel like you have to build up walls.
Oh, okay.
And they feel like, you can't let people in. You have to build up walls because guard your heart, right? And my interpretation of that verse is not to say that just because you've been hurt before and whatever, it doesn't mean you shouldn't show love and you should not open up yourself to people, but rather guarding your heart, what it means to me is like, guard your heart from allowing the evils of the world and the disappointments and the setbacks from affecting who you are at your core, affecting your love, right? Affecting the effort you've put in to become this kind or good person that you are. Like, because you've shown love and people have taken it for granted or have done rubbish or rubbished it, rubbed it in the dirt, you should guard your heart from allowing those experiences spoil the goodness that is in your heart. That is what my interpretation of guard your heart means. But people just feel like, okay, no, lift up a wall so that you can avoid people seeing you finish. And, you can avoid nonsense from happening to you. Those things are inevitable. Like, disappointments are going to happen. And, once we are aware of that, as much as we want to be intentional and we put efforts into relationships, not everybody's going to give that same effort. Not everybody's being as self-aware and intentional. And we should allow that affect who we are at our core. We should not feel like, because this person is giving this energy, we have to give them the same energy, like the same bad energy. If they're giving the bad energy after you have been giving your good energy, step away from it and try again with someone else. Give the good energy to someone else. Like, it shouldn't spoil that good energy. You shouldn't allow those situations spoil your good energy. Like, that's what my interpretation of guarding your heart, of that particular message or passage means. I saw you writing, so I know you have something to say.
Maybe I was just writing something for the future, something I don't want to forget. But like, that's honestly one of my favorite verses of scripture, because I believe so much in the power of the mind. And there's so many verses, in the Bible that allude to, the potency of our mind and what we can do with it, right? So as you were speaking, and this I've never ever thought about it this way, right? So as you were speaking, I thought about it in this light. Like, it literally said, guard your heart. It didn't say barricade it or close it off. It said guard. So if the point was, to shut everything off, then it would have said something like that, which means boom, put that wall, don't let anyone in. Guard means
it's open,
that you now get to decide. It's right, but then you're put things in place,
so that you're still safe. There's security.
to get their security. And all right, like, I mean, if you went to an establishment or whatever, they typically frisk you, or depending on wherever it is, to let you in, right? It's not like, oh no, humans are not allowed in here. So it's the same thing. You now determine who gets in and why, right? You go to some places, they ask you for ID to make sure that you are qualified to get in here. So it's the same thing regarding your heart. So it's not a now let your heart become stone because of your experiences, and now use that and be very prejudiced towards people,
to other people.
But no, right? Like, there's this thing I wrote a while ago that I've never forgotten. Discern. Did you say discerning? Yeah, and that's exactly what I wanted to talk about. Like, the quote reads this is the quote: don't let knowledge harden your heart. Sincerely, wisdom, right? So this is basically wisdom saying, don't let knowledge harden your heart, right? Wisdom basically is discernment, is application of knowledge. Right? So basically, knowledge is what? Those experiences, those things that you remember, the time that person hurts you, those things they said behind your back, those things that it makes you want to have a certain view towards life. But wisdom is calling on you to not let knowledge determine how your heart is going to be framed, because you now have to discern. We cannot afford to live life like that, to be honest. Like, you're going to be miserable, man. Like,
it takes even more work.
It takes a lot more work, and that's not the way to live. You will never experience love. You will never experience joy. You'll never be free, because there's just so much. You're so choked up, and that's not the way. That's not the way to live, right? So it's just all about really, applying the knowledge you have, being discerning, really. Yes, you have experiences, and no one is trying to invalidate all of that, right? But then let wisdom still help you to have a better quality of life, because at the end of the day, that's the whole point of it.
Yeah. And because of that, people are always scared and overprotective. So sometimes it puts them in a place where they just want to be receiving. They want to be taking.
Yeah.
And they're not giving as much as they're not ready to give, because they're playing scared. They're being overprotective. They don't want to be vulnerable. They don't want to be in that vulnerable position where someone could take them for granted, or someone
people are so scared of that.
Like, I feel like you said with this whole guarding thing, I feel like the best thing I have learned to do is to feel my feelings and not dwell, and train myself to move on from things as quickly as possible. This is not to say I will not get hurt, I will not get disappointed. I feel all those things happen, and I will cry, I'll feel really bad, my heart will break, I can feel it in my chest physically sometimes, right? but I try not to. I just build that safety net, whereas it's not like I'm putting walls, it's open, but I have a safety net so that if someone knocks me down, that safety net will help me bounce back up.
Yeah.
So I'll be down for a bit, I'll gather
Okay.
myself, I'll do what I need to do to gather myself, but I'll bounce back up and, be ready to show love to the next person, right? I don't feel, I need to be so scared of being vulnerable and so overprotective that I will not allow myself to experience good moments in people. I mean, I feel like people are not all bad, right? So
Yeah.
if I met someone and I liked you and I felt love for you at some point, that doesn't just disappear because you wronged me, And
Uh-huh.
if we're both willing to put in the work, we can continue to make things right. We can continue in that relationship, whether it's a friendship or, a romantic relationship. And this goes to say with even your family members or your work colleagues, right? Because everything is a relationship. So if we're both willing to put in that work, then yes, we can move on from it. But if we're not, then I have to now be, like you said, discerning and know that, okay, this is not a good situation to be in. And, support you from a distance, so to say, show
Yeah.
you love from a distance, not invest too much of my heart and energy into that relationship anymore, because, I have come to realize that you are willing to take, and not give anything back in return, because you are also maybe being overprotective of yourself, not wanting to be as vulnerable. And so,
Mm,
all those things tie into how we end up taking people for granted at the end of the day.
it
And
does.
there's another
Yeah.
thing I said about, I wrote down that, which I hear everybody always saying, I'm only going to be given the energy I get, or,
Yes.
people are always, and they do it, period, you know, period. Or they
That's
say,
on everything.
that's on that, that's on period, that's on everything. It's like
Yeah.
everybody's saying, I'm only going to love those who love me. Where does it start? Right? Like,
Yeah.
who starts
Yeah.
it? If everybody's thinking like that, nobody's going to start loving anyone first. So how
Mm-hmm.
are you going to love someone who loves you because if I'm thinking like that about you and you're thinking about that about me, none of us gonna
Yeah.
show the love first, and we just be looking at each other.
Yeah.
So, like, while that is true, it's not supposed to be at the forefront. You should be ready to show love first to someone if necessary. And if you're the one that maybe at first saw value in this person, and you're like, okay, I want this person in my life, you show love to the person. If you do it, and you see it's not being reciprocated and is maybe becoming toxic or whatever, then at that point, obviously, it's like, I can't keep showing love to someone who's not gonna show love back to me, right? And
Yeah.
then we move on. Like, that's the way I see that part. But definitely, someone needs to start the loving first.
One of the problems that I see with that mindset is that a lot of times people tend to define who they are um with respect to other people, and that's a problem. A lot of times people don't have, you
So
know,
they are at
a
the core, like,
clear,
mhm.
yeah, they don't have a clear definition of, their self-identity. They don't have it. So it's always mirrored. It's
They always mirror what
always
someone else is
dependent.
showing them. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's the problem. That is a fundamental problem because, if you are not you, independent of other people, then who are you really, right? And I said that to say, to say this, it's a lion is a lion, regardless of where it is, right? Now, there was a story of one man that was trying to help a scorpion that was drowning, right? And every time he tried to help the scorpion, it got stung, right? He tried the first time, he got stung and he let it go. Scorpion started drowning again. He went back again to help and everything. And someone saw that happening and it was like, yo, what are you doing, man? Why do you keep trying to save this scorpion, even, with all that has been going on with the stinging? And the man said, it's in the scorpion's nature to sting, right? And it's in my nature to try to save it. So Now, of course, this is extreme because now I'm not saying in the midst of toxic, whatever, that you should stay put because this is who you are. But I'm saying that what should define your action should first of all be values, your values, what's your perception on life, not how the other person is, the vibes they're giving, all of that thing that is so baseless and so shallow, and and that's why a lot of times people don't have real and genuine relationships, platonic and otherwise, because they're always thinking about themselves. There is a very self-absorbed mindset, which will not get you far. It will not get you to experience other people. You would always be guarded. You would always be deficient of true love, because that's not what love was designed to be, right? So I'm not saying that, just like you rightly said, that you should keep giving and giving even when you're, down and out, for someone that is obviously not interested. I'm saying that, like, don't do this because of what you're expecting the person to do.
Yeah.
This is what you wanted to do. Like, oh, I meet you for the first time and I want to talk to you. As you now starting, what if you don't want to talk to me? That's your business. I cannot choose for you. So I'm going to choose, oh, this is what will make me happy. This is what I want to do. I'll approach you and say, hi, what's good? Right? And so whatever it is that you now decide to do, that's up to you. So we should we should really decide our own vibe and not be tethered to people so much. It can be really crippling. That's what I have to say on that.
Like, we should be able to bring the same energy everywhere. We should have
this is you. That's who you
everywhere.
Are.
You should bring 100 everywhere. Like, if at the point where you see your 100 is not being appreciated, like you said, you don't have to keep investing in that. But it shouldn't be based on, because the person, at first you're not going to bring that energy because you're not sure that person will bring it first. You want to see, like, this person going to give me back this energy. You just bring it first, and like, and then let things flow from there. If the person's not bringing energy that you feel is enough to sustain the relationship, because sometimes we don't all need someone to even bring 100 back, but we just need some energy, some effort, so that it's not like we're doing too much of, and it bounces back and forth in relationships, right? Like, sometimes my energy will be lower and yours will be higher to sustain the balance. So we're balancing each other out, right? So in friendships and whatever. So that really does make sense. We have to be accountable and everything. Going back to the point of relationships, a boyfriend did tell me that he feels the whole point of being in a relationship or a friendship is to get to know yourselves through and through, and if we're trying to get us to know ourselves through and through, like, that's the whole point. Like, why not want to know this person for exactly who they are, like, at their core? And we should not allow ourselves take that opportunity to get to know someone that much for granted. In fact, what it should be doing is building more trust and loyalty and faithfulness, and empathy. Apart from self-awareness and intention, empathy also does play a big part in keeping healthy relationships across the board, whether it be with your family, with your friends, your colleagues, with your lovers. Empathy plays a big part. People always like to act like they're logical and they're not emotional, and then at the end of the day, what it is that they lack empathy because they're not even trying to understand that person's emotion. And so I mean, logic is good, but everything should be in balance, right? Like, you use logic to balance out your emotions, not to say you should not feel or you should not be emotional at all, but sometimes they need to work hand in hand. But when there are a lot of situations where I've seen people say they're being logical about a situation, and then, but it just comes off as them not having empathy, right? Not trying to see something from this person's point of view, not really trying to put themselves in that situation and know how they would feel, And, people are always trying to do right or wrong, who is right, who is wrong. And that's not always the situation. Sometimes you just need to understand people's perspectives. We just need to understand ourselves and know that,
Yeah.
okay, even though I do
Yeah.
not intend on offending you, I acknowledge how you feel and how that could offend you, because we definitely see things differently,
Mm-hmm.
right? So we all need to just be more empathetic. It's just amazing how people are not empathetic. Like, if why we're not
For real.
yeah, why we're not able to ask ourselves the question, like, if we don't like something, why are we doing it to others? Like, why? This thing, you don't want it for yourself. And it's true, there are a lot of people that don't even love themselves enough to want good things or feel they deserve good things. But if you, to some extent, have come to the point to feel that you love and deserve good things, but you're with someone that you supposedly care about, and your friendships or whatever, and you're not trying to, and you're doing stuff that you wouldn't like to be done to you, why are we doing that?
You
Yeah.
know, there's this funny thing, right? There are two levels to empathy. Um, and people think, oh, empathy is all about thinking, oh, if it were me, how would I? Yo, that's one level of
Mhm.
empathy, right? But the other level is to think about it from the other person's
Person,
point.
like, really puts yourself in their
Do you,
shoes and be like,
do you understand?
how
Because
how
you
is it
have to
feeling?
understand that we are dynamic. Like we all have different personalities, experiences,
Mm-hmm.
exposure, upbringing, and all of that, right? Understanding that will mean that the way I treat rejection or the way I deal with rejection may not be the way you deal with it. So just because for some reason, let's assume that I was able to determine that we faced the very same amount of rejection. And the way I treated it was like, I handled it well. And you're so distraught about it. My reaction shouldn't be, but is this same rejection now? Like, I understand what you are going through. Mm-mm.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's a wrong way of thinking. Empathy is trying to, like you said, literally, putting yourself in someone else's shoes, trying to understand,
How they're seeing it,
trying
yeah,
to,
from their
maybe the
perspective, yeah,
operative word, how it is from their own point of view, not you judging the situation from
from
your
your
point of
point of
view.
view, exactly.
There's a big difference.
Mm-hmm.
And so typically that is usually people's reaction to things. And that's why a lot of times we sound so out of tune and so disconnected, because you're thinking about it, boom, we're so self-absorbed. We always, to everybody, we are the center of the universe. You're the center of the universe. I'm the center of the universe to me, right? But then the problem with that is when we are trying to relate to other people's experiences, we're still treating it from the point of view of us being the
Mm-hmm.
center of the universe. And that's crazy thinking. That's
Yeah.
why a lot of times people are not able to truly empathize.
Yeah.
Sometimes they try to sympathize, but then
Yeah.
empathizing is another
Another
level.
level.
Right? You're letting go of your skills and prowess in dealing with whatever, or your better judgment, or whatever it is you are able to do, or whatever it is you are, and just being able to connect to who that person is, seeing it and
Mm-hmm.
experiencing it from
From their
their
perspective, their
point
point of
of
view.
view.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
That's
and
really
I
what
like
it
how
is.
you said that, because even me, because of the way I see things, I tend to say some things and do some things without really giving much thought to how someone else may see it or how they may feel about this thing, because I feel like maybe it's not a big deal. And
Yeah.
sure, but then that's another situation where communication comes into play. So I'm not going to always be aware that I'm doing
Yeah.
this thing. But if you make me aware, if you come and tell me, this thing you did, I don't like it, I'm not now going to dismiss the fact that you don't like it, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's one thing at least I would try. I would be honest and say I'm not always thinking at first when I'm doing something, if this person actually sees it the way I'm doing, I see it. I may be making a comment about someone that I can be making about that if it was me, I can say it and I won't feel a thing.
Yep.
And but they don't like that comment. So once you tell me I don't like this comment, and I'll just be like, okay. And you actually talk to me and you just tell me like why you don't like it and how you see it. And then it will bring me back. It should not be like, okay, really, I can see exactly why this could have been offensive to you. And I'm really sorry, right? Because for me, when I was doing it, I really had no ill intention. I was just doing it based on how I see myself. But you now coming to tell me this, I can, and you've learned from that situation, even for next time, because you now realize that this thing you did, not everyone is going to see it that way.
Mm-hmm.
And so being able to even acknowledge that in communication, right? Is a step forward in learning about and trying to understand people and see things from people's perspectives. But communication is necessary. That's another thing, because even with friendships and relationships, some people just expect other people to get it without saying anything. So we always have to always remember that we're different, even though we have a lot of things in common, we're still different.
Yeah.
So if something is bothering you or something doesn't sit well with you, you should communicate it, because you can't always expect people to just get it. By nature, we're not, thinking about everyone else first. I mean, in situations we do once here and there, but by nature, we're not always thinking about everyone else, right? And you on the other end, can't center yourself so much that you think this person is always thinking about you or doing something with bad intention, or they're doing it with you in mind that, oh, I must say this thing to make. No. Some people are just being themselves and they're not even realizing. So you can call them to order. So there's a lot of communication, like it's a deep thing. But communication also helps in
Yo, as you're saying it now, something that hit me is a lot of times, when there's this scenario that we usually don't practice empathy, and that is in heated arguments.
Mm-hmm.
Like when you're having disagreement with a friend, maybe,
mm-hmm.
or a romantic partner.
Mm-hmm.
Usually, especially when you're in the right, or when you
Mm-hmm.
feel you're in the right, there is not a lot of room for empathy. And that's why arguments typically take the tone they do. Because if we try to think about, now I'm not saying that people can't be wrong and we shouldn't tell them, but sometimes if you try to think about why someone could have done something, even if it was something that hurt you, you might find that your reaction to that thing will be different. Even if you do communicate and talk about it,
Mm-hmm.
you might find that the motive with which you're talking about it would be different. And that's because your mindset about it is not the same thing. You're not thinking this person was out to hurt me. You're not thinking this person did this with a premeditated, malicious intent.
Yes.
Thinking about it from the fact that, we're humans, we could make mistakes. This could have really just been what it was. Or more, it could save us a lot.
And this is why I like to ask people why. Like, why? I like to know why.
Really, it's so crucial. Why? Just 3 little letters, but it's so, so crucial, right? And there was something I wanted to say I remember like something when you were talking, and I'm not sure I remember it again, but it was, I might, talk about it again if I do remember, but it was basically about like empathy. Like I said, I don't remember it. It was something about empathy and sympathy, but I don't know. But yeah, just what I said though about being able to think about to empathize in different scenarios. Empathy is not only when somebody is like going through something that's something sad, right? Because that's how we typically think about it. Like, oh, you don't have empathy, and it's always like, oh, maybe someone is going through something. No, empathy is perpetual. And yes, I remember what it was. Yay! Empathy is like perpetual. It's something that as a result of our self-awareness and our human nature, we should, tend to and try to practice, often.
Mhm.
So what I wanted to say is that a lot of times people go, I'm sorry, you might hear me say self-awareness like 100 times today, but just really bear with me because a lot is hinged on self-awareness. People that aren't self-aware can barely ever practice empathy. They
Mhm.
cannot have it, right? Because it takes a level of awareness for you to be able to empathize. Now, here's the thing, because in order to be self-aware, you have to also be introspective. And it's the same skills that you need to apply in empathizing. The ability to zoom out of yourself, to analyze a situation objectively.
Mhm.
That's how you can be introspective. Now, that's the same skill set that you can transfer when you're empathizing. Also, zooming out of yourself to try to analyze the situation objectively, devoid of your feelings and sentiments towards it, right? And so, if you can do that for yourself, let's say, we have a disagreement or whatever, and I'm trying to determine, should I have said that? And I imagine just being, a spectator to our talk. And I'm saying, oh, okay, I said this. Is that the right thing to say? Whether it was me that said it or not, I'm just looking at it like I'm watching a movie. You will find that it will be easier for me to say, no, that was wrong, than me thinking about it from a personal
Mhm.
point of view that, oh, I said this, should I have said it? It would be easier for me to judge myself if I'm watching from the outside. I don't know if you get what I'm saying.
Mhm.
That's
Mhm.
what introspection is, right? And basically that's also like how we can practice that empathy. You zoom out of yourself, man. It's not about you. You're
Mhm.
not the flipping center of the universe, right? People
Mhm.
are people. People's lives matter. Sometimes I people watch. I just actually, this just came to me. I love people watching so much. It's one of the things I do.
Same.
And
Me
then,
too.
how we feel, oh, Sonia, we feel so important. Sometimes I'm like, let's say I'm at the gas station or I'm somewhere that's elevated and I'm just watching cars drive by. And I'm thinking that for every car that drives by, there's at least one or two or four people that have lives that I may never know about.
Know
And
about.
their lives are just the way I think about the way your whole life is
Mhm.
so big to you. That's the same way all those lives. I go to the mall, I'm just watching people like, so I think it makes me appreciate the fact that there's so much more that is not
More to,
about me.
yeah.
Like, so, and
So much going
doing that
on.
a lot of times, it helps me to, just like give deference to like other people's reality and
Mhm.
not put myself into every
Into, yeah.
little setting. Yeah.
To round up, pretty much what we're saying, guys, to avoid the finish of over familiarity, we should be more self-aware. We should be more intentional with our relationships. Try to, the same way in our lives, we put ourselves out there. We go for things we want, like for jobs. We should do that with our relationships. The way we hold like our jobs in high regard because it's paying our bills and doing that. We should do that with our relationship because nobody's an island. We all need people around us. So when people have let us into their life, to see them as who they are at their core. We should be appreciative of everything that someone is doing for you. If it's
Yeah.
sharing your story, liking your, so even on social media, if it's liking your posts, or just little things like checking up on you every now and then, or even that checking up on you is not even a little thing. When people are taking time out of their day to think about you, be appreciative. No matter how comfortable you get in that relationship, we need to always be self-aware and intentional about our relationships, show appreciation. So that's my parting words. If do you have any parting words, then we can end this.
Yeah, I don't know. We've shared a lot of really important and insightful things, and I've really benefited from a lot of the reminders, to be honest. But um, just being intentional, is key across everything we've said. Just like you said. So it's normal doesn't mean it's right.
Mm,
Like I said earlier in this conversation, it's our default setting doesn't mean that's what it should be. A
should
lot
be.
of us, we get devices, like I mean electronic devices or gadgets, and we don't operate with the default setting it came with. So why is it that when it comes to us, because something is the default setting, we think, oh, it's okay.
Yeah, we
It's
need to
there
grow
so
from
that
that. Yeah.
we need to grow, we need to evolve, we need to understand that we are responsible really for our own actions and
Action.
reactions, right? Not just
Yeah.
actions or reactions. And growing self-awareness, man, it would do you so much good. It would
Mm-hmm.
do you so it would give fragrance to your life, right? Because there's a stench, attached to lack of self-awareness that the person carrying may never know. So it's
Yeah.
really important for us to do it. However it is you get to do it, ask loved ones, just try and actually be honest with yourself. Ask people that care about you, and you will see that you will grow and you'll be better for it. A lot of times growth it's not comfortable, but
Mm-hmm.
when you do grow, you find out, oh shoot, this is where I'm supposed to
It's
be now.
sweet. You start enjoying
So yeah,
yourself more, even when you see, like, I enjoy growing older because I've just, the way I've grown, when I see the way I used to think about things before and the way I think about things now, it
yeah,
just makes me happier. I'm actually proud of
crazy.
myself. I
Yeah,
start seeing even more value in myself. So yeah, we do, like he said, we do need to grow in self-awareness. We're not perfect, but if we're always being intentional and self-aware, doing a lot of introspection, we can the journey that we're on is a journey to perfection, which we may never reach. But that journey, the fact that we're trying to get there, makes life more interesting. So we should just always keep at it. Even when you have downtime, it's fine. Get back up and keep at it again, right? So, we're
yeah.
not perfect, but we definitely will have downtimes. We're definitely not going to be self aware 24/7, like every second of the day. But as long as if something happens, we can come back to ourselves and think about it and be like, okay, was that really the best way? Try not to do it this way the next time,
Mm.
or try to write that time if possible. So, yeah. Thank you guys for watching Sunday Sit Down with Sonia. Sorry this is so long. Thank you, everybody, for being here.
It's been
And
a pleasure. Thanks for having me, Sonia.
um, bye, guys. See you next week.
Bye.